All right, guys, let's do a post-draft Green Bay Packers 53-man roster prediction. This will be the first roster prediction of the 2025 offseason now that the draft class has finalized. The Packers now head into the offseason, and we get closer and closer to OTAs, which are at the end of this month. And then, of course, mandatory minicamp early June, then into training camp late July. So a lot is going to change over this offseason. Not only is the roster going to change, but which players make their case to make this 53-man roster. So I wanted to put out an early prediction, a way too early prediction for that matter, post-draft of my 53-man roster prediction and see how close we can get when cutdown day finally happens. Guys, if you're looking for more Packers content throughout the entire offseason, you'll find it all here on this channel. So go down and definitely click subscribe if you want to stay in the loop with everything Green Bay Packers. Turn on post notifications so you won't miss any of the content or videos throughout the entire offseason. All right, so without further ado, let's dive down into the video. And first, I'm going to go over my color key for the players you'll see on screen on the list. So if they're in black, pretty much means they're going to make the roster. If they're in blue, that's going to be practice squad. If they're in purple and it says UDFA next to them, that means they made the roster as an undrafted free agent. If they are orange with the PUP next to it, which is really only the case for one player on today's roster prediction, that means they're starting the year on the PUP, therefore not counting towards the 53-man roster. And then, of course, if they're in red, that means they're outright cut. They're not on the roster. They're not on the practice squad. All right, so let's get into it. Let's start on the offense, and let's, of course, start with the quarterback position. This is a fairly easy one, as it was last year as well. There are a ton of positions on not only the offense and defense that are very difficult. You have to sit there kind of questioning, will this or will this player not make the roster? But quarterback is very easy, and it's going to be two for the Green Bay Packers. Even if the Packers end up trading Malik Willis, which I don't see happening, it's still going to be two. And the two it's going to be for 2025 is Jordan Love and Malik Willis, with Sean Clifford remaining on the practice squad. There wasn't really any additions this offseason. They have a couple tryout quarterbacks, but the Packers didn't end up drafting a quarterback like they did last year. A lot of people thought they would, but they're pretty set at quarterback. Jordan Love, Malik Willis will be the two quarterbacks on the 53-man roster, and Sean Clifford will be an emergency guy on the practice squad. There's not much else to talk about that. I don't see Sean Clifford beating out Malik Willis in any way for quarterback number two. That position is solidified for Malik Willis. What he was able to do last year when Jordan Love was injured, he definitely has earned that role, and in the future could earn a starting spot on another football team around the league, but we'll see. That is yet to happen. Moving over to running back. This one's a little difficult because the Packers have 4 quality running backs, but will they keep 4? I think they will, in favor of keeping 4 tight ends, which we'll go over here in a second. I think they'll end up keeping 4 running backs because there's a lot of quality here. Now, 2 of these guys are definitely locks for this roster, and that's going to be Josh Jacobs and Marshawn Lloyd. Obviously, the Packers aren't going to move on from Marshawn Lloyd after what was a pretty much redshirt rookie season after some injuries there. They spent a 3rd-round draft pick on the guy. Now, the next 2, if you're keeping 3 running backs on the roster, some would argue it's got to be Emmanuel Wilson, and some would argue it's got to be Chris Brooks. I think it would be Chris Brooks just for the pass protection, but I'm keeping both anyways. I'm keeping Emmanuel Wilson. He's a great runner. We saw him, come in as pretty much running back 2 last season. I think Marshawn Lloyd will be running back 2 this season, but Emmanuel Wilson is still a very solid runner in case of any injuries or anything, or running back needs a breather. Emmanuel Wilson can definitely be a very capable running back, and Chris Brooks as well, how they use him as an H-back, as a fullback. That's why I'm also only keeping 3 tight ends, which again, we'll go over here in a second, because Chris Brooks can do so much, and Matt LaFleur uses him, almost as a tight end. So that's why I also want to keep Chris Brooks on this roster. He's definitely our best pass protecting running back. As for the other running back spots, Amar Johnson, they signed as an undrafted free agent this season. Very interesting running back there with a lot of speed. I think he could be our practice squad guy, and I think they outright cut Jalen White. Then moving to tight ends, as I mentioned, I'm only keeping 3. This was one position I had to cut from 4 to 3 just so other players could end up making this roster. Now, the Packers very well could keep 4, and if they do, it's most likely going to be John Fitzpatrick. But the 3 that I see them keeping is Tucker Kraft, Luke Musgrave, Ben Sims. Now, as for the other tight ends, I see them practice squatting John Fitzpatrick and Messiah Swinson. Swinson was on our practice squad all last year. I don't think the Packers want to outright cut John Fitzpatrick. This could be a guy that has a couple game day elevations if the Packers want to go more heavy tight end, and Fitzpatrick is on the active game day roster roster in particular weeks, even though he's riding the practice squad. I could totally see that happening, and I see them outright cutting Johnny Lumpkin. Very excited for this year of hopefully fully healthy Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave. I know we've been saying for 2 years now, we're like, I really want to see both these guys, go to work together healthy, which we really haven't had yet. So very, very intrigued for that. And then Ben Sims, very solid rotational depth blocking tight end that, can catch some passes here and there. So I think he's going to be their third tight end over John Fitzpatrick. Moving to wide receiver, this one was very difficult, and this was the last roster cut I had to make, and I'm only keeping 5. The Packers drafted 2 wide receivers in this draft class, and Matthew Golden and Savion Williams. The first 3 guys on this list are roster locks. I mean, the Packers could go and trade Romeo Doubs. So in that case, then you add one of Malik Heath or Bo Melton onto the roster, which for me, it would be Malik Heath. But if they trade Romeo Doubs, which I don't see happening before the season, maybe during the season, but for right now, these 3 are locks. Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks. Actually, all 5 of these guys are locks. Matthew Golden and Savion Williams. So all 5 of those guys are pretty much roster locked outside of a random trade of Romeo Doubs or Wicks. I don't see them trading Wicks. If they trade a guy, it's going to be Doubs. And I was going to keep Malik Heath on the roster. And the reason I was going to keep him over Bo Melton was Bo Melton seems very expendable right now with adding Matthew Golden as that burner deep threat receiver and adding Savion Williams as another gadget end around jet motion guy, where Bo Melton was kind of the backup to Jaden Reed in that role. Well, now they have Savion Williams to do some backfield work, some jet motion, some end arounds. And we have Matthew Golden to take the top off of defense. So Bo Melton really expendable, whereas Malik Heath is more of that physical presence, outside guy, very good run blocker. And I think if the Packers were to keep 6, it would be Malik Heath over Bo Melton, And then, of course, Christian Watson starting the year on the PUP. And this is also why I only kept 5 receivers and just went with this, because when Watson's off the PUP, which when that will be, I don't know. It's anyone's best guess. They're going to have to cut one of Malik Heath or Bo Melton anyways. So yeah, they could ride with one of those guys into the season and then end up cutting them later. That definitely could happen. But I'm just going to roll with 5 here. Watson starting on the PUP, which he doesn't count towards the 53-man roster. Heath and Melton to the practice squad. I have them outright cutting McCole Hardman. It was a signing earlier in the year, and we're going, oh, this could be cool. This could be fun. But then you draft Matthew Golden and Savion Williams, and you're kind of like, okay, McCole Hardman at this point is an afterthought if you can't even keep Bo Melton on the roster. Outright cutting Julian Hicks and outright cutting Cornelius Johnson. So I had them keeping 5 receivers. Then moving on to tackle. I have this sorted from tackle, guard to center rather than just overall offensive line. Just makes it a little bit, cleaner, easier to read and whatnot. So tackle, I have them keeping 4, and it's going to be Zach Tom, Rasheed Walker, Jordan Morgan, and Kadeem Telfort. Now, I think there's a very, very slight chance the Packers could end up trading Rasheed Walker, trying to get something out of him. But at the same time, if they let him walk after this year, which is last year of his rookie deal, and he signs a Dan Moore-style deal, the Packers could get a third-round compensatory pick from him anyway, so they don't really have to say trade him. They could run this year, him at left tackle, give Jordan Morgan a little bit more time to fully learn left tackle. Then you go into 2026 with Jordan Morgan starting at left tackle. But I don't see them trading him in season. There is a slight chance, but I don't really see it. So Zach Tom, obviously a roster lock. He's due for a mega extension here shortly. Rasheed Walker, I think, will start the year starting at left tackle. Maybe Jordan Morgan or Belton takes over. I have Jordan Morgan, Kadeem Telfort. Telfort's a versatile guy. They usually bring him on as like that 6th lineman. He can play some guard. Travis Glover, didn't really like the pick last year. We saw the absolute implosion of our offensive line against the Eagles in the playoffs when Glover had to come in. And then Brant Banks I have as an outright cut, but I do have them keeping Glover on the practice squad. Moving to guard, we have Aaron Banks, Sean Ryan, and then 2 rookies, Anthony Belton and John Williams. I am classifying Anthony Belton as a guard. I think he will be starting right guard at some point this season, maybe early as week 1. I think they're moving towards heavier people-moving guards, signing Aaron Banks and drafting Anthony Belton, and those 2 at starting left guard, right guard seems like the projection for the Packers in the future. Sean Ryan is a rotational piece. John Williams, a very impressive or intriguing rookie out of the 7th round, especially. He could play some tackle, but I do see him as a guard. He's listed as a guard on the Packers website. And then I also have Donovan Jennings and Tyler Cooper going to the practice squad. Donovan Jennings, an undrafted free agent last year that people, saw highly of. was injured a lot during training camp, so ended up, remaining on the practice squad. Tyler Cooper, kind of a similar story as Donovan Jennings last year, a guy that you're like, how did he go undrafted out of Minnesota? Good quality guard. I think they both make the practice squad, and those are good practice squad guards to have, and I have JJ LePay and Marquise Hayes getting outright cut. Moving to center, I am obviously classifying Elton Jenkins as a center. I'm also classifying Jacob Monk as a center. He is listed as center/guard on the Packers website, and I think the Packers need to keep Jacob Monk. Some people are leaving him off their roster projections, but if Elton Jenkins gets hurt, which he has some injury history, who's playing center? We saw Sean Ryan come in at center and skip snaps off the ground, I think, against the Eagles, right? I don't really know who else on this roster outside of Zach Tom, maybe Jordan Morgan, that could play center. I think Jacob Monk is next in line, and I think he's going to train fully as center and maybe become our future center once we move on from Elton Jenkins. But this year it is going to be Elton Jenkins, and I'm excited for that. I'm excited for Jenkins to plug in at center and hopefully have Belton and Banks next to him at guard. I think the interior of the offensive line is definitely going to move some people this year, and they're going to be, continue to be a power running football team. But I have them obviously keeping two centers here, Elton Jenkins, Jacob Monk, and outright cutting Trey Hill. So that's the offense overall. Couple notable cuts, I would say. Obviously, Malik Heath, Bo Melton, they're going back to the practice squad in this. Outside of that, not any crazy notable cuts. Maybe John Fitzpatrick, but he's going to the practice squad in this rendition anyways. Now, let's flip on over to the defense. For the interior defensive line, I have them keeping 5, and I do have one notable outright cut, and that's going to be Colby Wooden. Now, I don't have him coming back to the practice squad because I feel a team would sign him to their 53-man roster, so the Packers won't be able to put him on their practice squad. I think he's expendable, and I think Nazir Stackhouse makes the roster over him because he plays a completely different position, and the Packers simply don't have a defensive lineman to, basically play that nose tackle role, where Nazir Stackhouse can, Warren Brinson can, Colby Wooden really can't. He's on the lighter side. I don't see them cutting Carl Brooks any way, shape, or form, and obviously they're going to hold on to Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt. They just accepted their 5th-year option. So Warren Brinson obviously making the roster, and I have Nazir Stackhouse as this year's undrafted free agent and only undrafted free agent making the roster. Practice squadding Nesta Jade Silvera, who they signed after last season to a futures contract. Clearly they like something in him, but again, we got the whole offseason to go through. Outright cutting Colby Wooden, James Esther, and Keith Randolph. I just think Colby Wooden's a little expendable, and I think Nazir Stackhouse offers them more in terms of what they need on that defensive line. Moving to edge, I have them keeping 6. It's going to be a pretty easy 6 to guess. Rashawn Gary, Lucas Van Ness, JJ Enagbare. I could see Enagbare as like a surprise cut this year if they need to cut an edge and only keep 5. I think they keep Brenton Cox over him. If they do cut an edge, I think it will be JJ Enagbare. So I have Enagbare making the roster, Brenton Cox Jr., and then of course the 2 rookies, Barron Sorrell and Colin Oliver. Now the Packers could view Oliver as more of like that hybrid edge linebacker role. And in that case, maybe they keep less linebackers and more edges. I don't know. I think they consider him as an edge, just a versatile piece there, and he's going to be included in the other 5. So total of 6 edges there. Aaron Mosby to the practice squad, and then Deslin Alexander and Jeremiah Martin being outright cut. As for linebacker, this is also a hard one. They have a lot of potential in this linebacker room. The first 4 are roster locks, in my opinion. Quay Walker, Edgerrin Cooper, Isaiah McDuffie, and Tyron Hopper. Then you question, are they going to keep 5? Are they going to keep 4? And if they keep 5, which one of these 3 is it going to be? Isaiah Simmons, Jamon Johnson, or Christian Welch? I like all 3. I was very, very close to putting Jamon Johnson as the second undrafted free agent to make the roster out of Kentucky, former Georgia linebacker, tons of potential. But I feel like Isaiah Simmons might offer more for special teams day one. I like Jamon Johnson a lot, and I hope the Packers can keep him on their practice squad, but I think Isaiah Simmons not only offers more on special teams day one, but in a pinch could go on this defense, and Jeff Hafley could really put him anywhere. He just offers more, and hopefully, maybe can revitalize his career a little bit under Jeff Hafley, still a young player with a ton of potential. So I have them keeping 5 linebackers there. Jamon Johnson and Christian Welch reverting back to the practice squad, or reverting to the practice squad. As for cornerback, I have Jair Alexander as a Green Bay Packer in this rendition. That's where it's trending right now. So that's what it's going to be right now. Now, next month's roster prediction after OTAs, this could completely change. But right now I have them keeping 5 cornerbacks with Jair Alexander. So I have Alexander, Keyshawn Nixon, Nate Hobbs, Carrington Valentine, and rookie Micah Robinson out of Tulane there. And I have 2 practice squad corners, Kalen King and John Baldwin. They guaranteed a lot of money to John Baldwin. I know they like him a lot. Do I see him making the 53-man roster over Micah Robinson? Probably not, but I definitely see him as a practice squad guy. And I have them outright cutting Kamal Hadden, Isaiah Dunn, Caleb Hayes, and Tyron Herring. I was very close to putting Kamal Hadden on the practice squad, but I simply didn't have enough room. You can only have 16 practice squad guys, and I already had 2 corners, so I had to cut Kamal Hadden and keep John Baldwin due to the guaranteed money. That's where I made that move there. Moving to safety, I have them keeping 5. It's a pretty easy 5 to guess. Xavier McKinney, Javon Bullard, who can also and will play nickel corner, but he's classified as a safety in this regard. Evan Williams, Katana Ladapo, Zane Anderson. I have them practice squatting Kazir Bugs Brown, very intriguing player. If you look up his profile, his RAS, and then outright cutting Amar Brown. Pretty straightforward for these safeties, right? Again, Javon Bullard plays nickel for us. Evan Williams, Xavier McKinney starting, Katana Ladapo, Zane Anderson, 2 guys that can plug in, play special teams, and all of that. Finally, special teams. There's really no other option than to do this unless the Packers add an outside long snapper in, which they have in years past, but it's ended up always being Matt Orzech, even though every prediction I'm like, they're going to change it. They're going to go with another long snapper. They added this guy, and it's always ends up being Matt Orzech, even though we don't want it to be. So, I mean, they didn't even add one this offseason, so clearly they love Matt Orzech. It's going to be Brandon McManus, Daniel Whelan, Matt Orzech, and then Alex Hale is an additional practice squad guy. You can have a 17th if they're an international player, which Alex Hale is, so he's in pink here, and he'll be on the practice squad as a reserve kicker. So that does it for my first rendition of the Green Bay Packers 2025 53-man roster prediction post NFL draft. Let me know down in the comments below, are there any players that I left off the roster that you think right now will make the 53-man roster, or vice versa? Do you have any players that you think are going to get cut or removed off this roster that I have making it? Let me know down in the comments below, or just comment your entire 53-man roster prediction if you wish. Really appreciate you guys coming by to the video. I'll probably do one of these every month or after every off-season program, so like after OTAs, after mandatory minicamp, and then of course after training camp, the final rendition. That's probably what I'll go through and do a version after each one of those. But I appreciate you guys coming by. Leave a like down below if you did enjoy it. It supports the channel a ton. I'll catch you on the next one, and as always, go Pack Go.